Welcome back to Sandy and Shawn. I'm Shawn Drotar, live from Radio Row at Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas. We've been fortunate to talk to this gentleman a couple of times on the program. Super Bowl winning coach, Super Bowl 35 with the Baltimore Ravens, Brian Billick. Coach, nice to have you
Thank you for having me. Always great to visit in Denver.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun to be able to talk to you about all these games, and especially now we get to Super Bowl, it's the big one.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the two teams that perhaps there's a little bit of fatigue from fans across the country because both of these teams have been either winning titles or in the Super Bowl or very, very close to it with regularity. But when I look at these rosters, and I've mentioned this before, but only 6 players from the Chiefs offense and the 49ers offense were in the last Super Bowl matchup. That's how much things turn around. So it's a tribute to these organizations. It's not as easy to keep at that level where these organizations have been, because even though they're back year after year after year, turnover in the NFL is 35 to 40% of every single year.
Absolutely, and that's the key, because there is going to be that change. Or pro football organizations are living, breathing entities, and they change and they grow. And like you said, there's going to be that changeover with free agency, and that's the challenge right now. And the coaches have done a great job of making sure that they follow the lead of their players that do have the experience. That's the challenge of the Super Bowl week right now: is how do I keep this week feel normal? Because at the end of the day, guys, practice is practice. Actually, the game is the game. We know how to do that. You've done that. It's all the peripheral things that now come into play. Radio Row, we're in Las Vegas. The pregame is longer. The halftime is like no halftime you've ever been a part of. You've got to coach them through that, basically to let them know that you've got a plan. We've been here before. We know how to deal with this, to give them a comfort zone so they don't wear themselves out emotionally.
You talk about that halftime. That's something that I don't think a lot of people consider, but obviously it's quite a bit longer. How do you approach that when you look at it, whether you are up or you're down? What do you normally do, and then realize we have to alter this? Is everyone just sort of quiet, or do you really keep it busy trying to?
Well, we prepared them for. We actually practiced the halftime, for they understood. Look, it's going to be longer. So what we're going to normally, you come in, you go to the bathroom, you do whatever you can do to kind of figure out what are we going to do, and then you're back out on the field. It's very quick. We actually create a structure where they'd come in, do the normal thing, have a quick meeting, stretch. We stretched as a team in the locker room. Now, whether that made a difference or not, I don't know, but at least the players felt like, okay, we got a plan.
Structure.
We know what we're doing for this. Then we'd meet again real quickly, and then you go back out. Basically, just to even if it's a placebo, to give them, we know what we're doing here. It is different. We're dealing with it so we can get back into that comfort zone of being back on the field.
So when you are looking at this game in particular, and you look at the coaches, and that's a lot of it, right? They're living, breathing entities, but the culture actually does matter. Sometimes we talk about culture, and it's not as big a deal as some people expect, especially in certain sports. But in football, when you have the leadership, whether it's at the GM level plus the coach level, and then hopefully the quarterback level in many cases, especially today,
right,
then you do kind of have a culture. But when you look at what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have done on one side, and you look at Brett Veach and Andy Reid on the other side, the quarterback's been there for the Chiefs. The quarterback hasn't been there for the Niners. That they were hoping at this point this would be Trey Lance, and that didn't work out. They were able to adjust, and Brock Purdy's where he is. But that part of the culture of building football, is it always top down, or does some of it work its way up from the bottom?
No, it's both. And when you really have something going is when you have enough players as a basis, because that's who the players are really going to follow. You can set a tone as a coach, and you can try to set that structure. But in our Super Bowl team, we had some great veteran, all-time, Rod Woodson, Shannon Sharp, Jonathan Ogden, certainly a Ray Lewis, that you could lean on them following your gatekeepers. You got to make sure that they're on board. I tell a story all the time. I knew the minute we were going to beat the New York Giants in Super Bowl 35 was we were in Tampa, and we had to go to one of those Florida directional schools to practice, Northwest, Eastern, whatever. And traffic in Tampa being what it is. And I was a coach, never had a lot of rules. We had no bed check, no curfew. The whole time I was the coach in the NFL and as a head coach, and even at the Super Bowl. But I said, guys, I want you to and from practice on the bus, okay? Just because we got an escort, and I want to know that you get there, they get you back. Well, after our first practice, we're walking out of the locker room. I'm behind Shannon Sharp and one of our young players. They don't know I'm there. And the young player looks at Shannon and says, my aunt and uncle are here. You think Coach let me ride back with them? And Shannon could have easily go, oh, yeah, that's the coach's job. You deal with that. But I knew that my gatekeepers were in charge, because Shannon looked at the young player and said, Coach said we're going to and from practice on the bus. Get your butt on the bus. Right then I knew my gatekeepers were in charge. The young players were following them. We were going to be in good shape.
Let's bring that back to the Denver Broncos, obviously, where Sean Payton and George Payton as well are trying to create a culture under relatively new ownership. So a lot of this has been in flux. Payton's just finished his first year. George Payton's been a little longer, only the second season for new ownership. The first one, they were kind of getting their feet wet as a new group in the NFL. The Broncos don't have a lot of all pros. They do have a tremendous man of the year candidate in Justin Simmons, who's been that way multiple times. Garrett Bowles this year has been that candidate for the Broncos, but Simmons has been with the Broncos since 2015, since the year after the Super Bowl.
Right.
He's been on a losing team ever since.
Right.
He's done yeoman's work, but how many more players do you need like that to create that culture? Is it talent-based or is it the person?
Well, it's both. Ultimately, that leadership is going to stem from the talent. You
Right.
can have the greatest guys in the world, but if they're not talented, if they can't deliver for the teammates, they're not going to follow them. So, yeah, you want to build up as big a base as you can. You want that base of guys that they can lean on when you hit that storm, that are we okay? Are we doing okay? Obviously, job one for them is where are we at the quarterback position? That's got to be set. So that the players understand this now gives us a chance for you then to establish that culture that certainly Sean Payton is familiar with, but he knows he's going to have to establish like he did when he brought in Drew Brees and was able to start that. That's obviously job one.
Going to that point now, the Senior Bowl is behind us. Some of the draft process will really start in earnest, after the Super Bowl wraps up next week. But for the Broncos, for Sean Payton, they know they need a quarterback if they're moving away from Russell Wilson. This is always sort of the question I have when you talk about drafts, right? The idea of when you love a guy, go get a guy. They picked 12th. The Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, almost certainly going to be gone. Now you're in the Bo Nix, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy kind of group of quarterbacks who a lot, at least the evaluators, believe it may be end of the first round, second round guys. Broncos don't have a second round pick. They do need a quarterback. Is this a situation where if you run through these guys, and let's just hypothetically say Bo Nix, because off of the Parcells tree, Sean Payton always says the same thing. The more starts a college quarterback gets, the more I like him. So let's just say it's Bo Nix. Nobody really thinks Bo Nix is probably worth, I've used finger quotes here, the 12th pick in the draft. But that doesn't necessarily apply to any specific team. Your team situation throws all that out the window.
No, the idea of is a player, is it a good pick, a bad pick because you got him later? That's all valid observation unless you're talking about quarterbacks. If you make the evaluation, this is a legitimate pro quarterback, that this can be the guy, doesn't matter where you take him. So that's really the fundamental. And history will tell us that 50% of the time in the first round, you're going to be wrong. I don't care who you are. It's a 50-50 proposition. There's no reason all of those guys shouldn't be great pros. Just like there's no reason that Justin Fields, Bryce Young, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, the list goes on and on. There's no reason they shouldn't have been top NFL quarterbacks. So you go in understanding it's a 50-50 crapshoot, okay? So they have to make the fundamental decision. Which of these guys are that? There'll be multiple, maybe only one. If you think it's only one, then you got to do and you think he's in front of you, you got to go get him. Now, if you're lucky enough that you value, say, a Bo Nix, and you think he's a legitimate guy, and that's where it begins. That's where you make your money. Is he a guy? Knowing that we got a 50-50 chance of being right, then you take him at 12. 12 is an interesting pick because typically when you're talking about the teens, it's one of two things. Now, let's remember, Patrick Mahomes was the 12th.
Right.
But it's usually a guy that is there because for some reason he's been nixed enough that he falls out of the top 5 or 10. So he drops that position, which is a cautionary tale. Or it's he really belongs in the 20s, but you're reaching at a need and you bring him in. And you look at the history of 11 through 20, it's spotty. Yeah. It's spotty everywhere, but it's for that reason. So you gotta ignore all that and decide, do we think this guy's a guy or not? San Francisco thought Trey Lance was that guy, and they were wrong, and it ended up being the last pick in the draft. So that shows you that there's a little bit of danger in this, but it begins with, do you think he's a guy or not? If not, you take him if you can get him, and if not, you move up to get him.
You're not going anywhere without a quarterback. If you're getting to watch us on video, you see the coat that Coach is wearing, Signal Relief. We've talked about it a little bit before. Signalrelief.com is the website. It's a simple patch that basically sort of blocks the signal from your
Correct.
brain to where the pain goes. I have one on my shoulder right
There
now.
you then you know. I love those testimonials.
Yes,
the real
I
deal.
tried one this morning. So yeah, but what have you seen from Signal that
Well,
works
just
for you?
that. What I love about it, I mean, the ultimate healing comes from your ability to work through the pain, work the muscles and the joints. I worked with pro players for 40 years, and you go into a pro training room. There are hundreds of thousands of dollars, STEM machines, whirlpools, hydrotherapy pools, all with the idea of getting them to be able to deal with that prohibitive pain to get them back on the practice field. This does the same thing. It's reusable, so it's very cost effective. What I love, you put it where you need it. If I'm 18 holes of golf, I'm going to put it on my lower back. If I get out of the pool 3 days a week, I swim, it's my shoulder or my upper back. That helps you deal with that little bit of prohibitive pain that now allows me to work through that pain, because now you work the muscles, the joints through that. The more you do, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you do. It's a great product for that. It's reusable, 100% money back guaranteed. If you don't like it, you will like it. Very, very easy to use. And I tell you what, it's the real deal. It's going to block that little bit of prohibitive pain that keeps you from doing what it is you need to do to get back in the game.
Yeah, because when muscles are tight, if you can't move them, they can't get better. That's just the way it is.
The more you do, the better you feel. The better you feel, the more you do.
Exactly. Motion's medicine. Well, if you want to try it for yourself, you can go to signalrelief.com. Coach Brian Billick has a promo code for you. It's easy. Just coach 20% off.
Can't beat
signalrelief.com and check it out. So, Coach, always a treat to talk to you.
Thank you.
It's fun to come out and get to do it in person once a year.
Love it.
But always appreciate having the opportunity.
Very good. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.